So talking about warm-ups, warm-ups is something that's part of a lot of activities in sports. People that have grown up doing sports would be quite used to doing warm-ups, but it's something that we don't always do so well as part of SCA. The purpose of a warm-up is to prepare, so both physically and mentally. It can be something which helps you to improve sort of your physical function in terms of blood flow to your muscles. It can improve your flexibility, coordination, and all of these things tie together to lead to injury prevention, which is the main purpose of a warm-up. An effective warm-up does those things, so prepares your muscles, prepares your joints, and it improves coordination. But in SCA fighting in particular, when you warm up when you're wearing your armour, it gives you a really good opportunity to make sure that everything's well fitted and that you haven't forgotten any pieces. The main thing that it does is it bridges that gap between when you start an activity and when your muscles reach that peak performance. What we're going to be doing is just talking about components of an effective warm-up so that you can go and design one for yourself that fits your needs. And on that point, it's really important with your warm-up that if you're somebody who has pre-existing injuries or medical conditions, that you do sort of seek professional advice as to how to best manage those. And that's going to be good because it'll help you to fight better and stay on the field. You won't be injured and unable to fight. So when you're planning your warm-up, you want to sort of ramp up. So you're starting with something light and low intensity. Usually the purpose of that is to improve circulation to your muscles and to increase your body and muscle temperature. And that's because when your body temperature is higher, you're better able to exchange sort of oxygen and nutrients to those muscles so they function more effectively. This normally is for about 5 minutes. If you're someone that's sort of starting out with warm-ups, that can be as simple as a brisk walk or a light jog. It can be skipping, it can be doing some running on the spot, depending on how much space you've got and what exactly it is you're trying to do. After that part where you're feeling a bit warm, it goes to activities where you're stretching through range. Now, some people like to do static stretches where you would sort of stand in one place and sort of be stretching your arms and legs. And there's benefit to that, but they tend to be things that are more effective if you do them regularly rather than directly before your fight or your tournament. For the most part, you're looking at trying to do dynamic stretches, so activities where you're stretching through range. So that can be generalized exercises such as walking lunges, doing arm circles. For glaive fighters, it can be the sort of canoeing activities, and for sword and board fighters, it can be things like the Statue of Liberty exercise, which Roland had talked about in a previous video. Or if you're training on your own, it could be something like controlled pel work. So the purpose of these activities is to control your movements. You're not trying to go quickly, you're trying to gently and get used to those body movements and move your limbs through those ranges, which helps you to sort of stretch out those muscles and get things used to moving. As I said before, this is a great time to check your armour is fitting well and it's not sort of stopping you or you're not getting caught on anything. When you're training in pairs, a way that we often do this would be through slow work, which is a pretty common activity for most SCA fighters. Most fighters would start with some slow work at the beginning of their training session or before they begin their fight. But it is really important to always keep in mind the goal of this part of the warm-up, which is to control your movement and move through range. It's very tempting in slow work to feel like there's a winner or to speed up, but it is about taking that time to let everything stretch out and warm up. Once you've done that part, which can take 5 or 10 minutes, you want to skip to activity-specific things. So things which are mimicking the activity you're about to do, but in a more controlled zone. So compared to the exercises you were just doing, you're looking at having it have a bit of a faster pace or have a bit more force, and that's where you can start doing sort of paired combo drills, which is something that we might talk about in a different video. In terms of regular fight practices, this would be where you'd be doing fast and light, where you're trying to do that full pace combat, but you're not worrying too much about the force that you're putting into your blows. Or it can be higher speed drills where, you can do, just faster drills. In terms of how long your warm-up should go for, it really depends on what you're trying to do. So if it's before a weekly fighter practice, it might be a bit longer. So you're looking at something between 15 and 20 minutes in length, because you're possibly adding into that a bit of fitness. So you might spend a bit more time on that jogging at the start. You might spend a bit more time on those skills-based focuses where you're doing more combo drills, you're doing more sort of learning techniques. as opposed to right before a tournament where the focus is really to sort of get those muscles moving and that body temperature up. So you're probably going to do more of that first section and then skipping into that faster paced activity mimicking things. Other things to keep in mind would be your own fitness level. If you're someone who is just starting at fighting or someone who has an injury, it's probably better to take more time to warm up so that you've got more time to sort of get yourself into the right headspace, get yourself moving and get comfortable in your armour. This can be where oftentimes in tournaments we'll have people who say, you know, I really don't feel like I'm into the zone until I've had 2 fights. You know, and unfortunately if you're fighting in a single kill double a limb, that's you out possibly. So taking the time to warm up effectively is going to let you fight better in those sections where it matters more, so those rounds in the tournament. If you're someone with an injury, once again, you know, it's important that you do get that advice from someone to know how to warm yourself up effectively. And that's where you might spend more time in that second section where you're stretching through range to do things which are specific to yourself. So if you have a shoulder injury, spending more time stretching out your shoulders before you then press on into those faster paced activities. Another simple thing to keep in mind in terms of how long should you warm up is the weather. If it's really cold, you're going to need to spend more time. In terms of how intense your warm-up should be, you should be able to hold a conversation. So the point of it is not to sap your strength and it's not to tire you out. You are just trying to build up a bit of a light sweat and to warm up the body. When should you do your warm-up? Within 30 minutes of the activity. So before a tournament, 30 minutes beforehand, be in your armour and start your warm-up. The only other thing to keep in mind is to follow up at the end of the activity with an active cool down, and this can be something as simple as sort of walking around. It doesn't need to be very complicated, and it's mostly part of those first activities, so those light, low intensity activities to just slowly cool yourself down from the tournament. So hopefully this has been helpful, and good luck, go forth.